There's no surprise that being the President of the United States comes with a lot of rules as well as power. However, the job doesn't fully stop when they leave the Oval Office for the last time. Once their term is over, former presidents' lives are far from going back to the ordinary, everyday life of paying the bills, stocking up the groceries, or catching a movie in a local cinema. While former U.S. presidents have followed a variety of career paths after leaving the White House, there are still certain rules and procedures that they all have to follow. From driving cars to using cell phones, here are the rules that former presidents have to follow. Former presidents are not allowed to drive. One of the notable advantages of being the President of the United States is the luxury of not having to navigate through daily traffic. As the President, you have the privilege of having drivers chauffeur you to your destinations, and the Secret Service has the authority to clear the way for your travels, ensuring your journey is uninterrupted and secure. While this might cause inconvenience to other road users, such measures are essential given the President's stature and the importance of their schedule. However, this perk comes with a significant restriction post-presidency. Once a president leaves office, they are no longer permitted to drive on public roads. This rule is primarily due to the lifetime Secret Service protection afforded to all former presidents. The road is considered one of the more vulnerable places, even under ordinary circumstances, and the risks are amplified for individuals with the high-profile status of an ex-president, who are potential targets for security threats. As former President George W. Bush shared with Jay Leno, his driving is now restricted to his private property, away from the unpredictability of public roads and potential dangers. When traveling beyond his property, he is chauffeured by Secret Service agents trained in specialized driving techniques, including evasive and defensive maneuvers. This policy of prohibiting former presidents from driving on public roads was instituted following the assassination of John F. Kennedy in 1963, with Lyndon B. Johnson being the last president to have driven on public roads. Staying at the presidential townhouse. The General Services Administration confirms that the U.S. federal government is the owner of the President's Guest House, also known as Blair House. This complex consists of a series of townhome-style buildings situated on the west side of Lafayette Square and the 700 block of Jackson Place in Washington, D.C. Within this row of interconnected buildings, specifically at 716 Jackson Place, stands a townhouse acquired by the federal government in the late 1950s. In 1969, it was designated as the Presidential Townhouse through an executive order issued by then-President Richard Nixon. Constructed in the 1860s, this townhouse previously served as the residence of Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, Jr. However, since Nixon's declaration, it has held the official status of a temporary residence for former U.S. presidents visiting Washington, D.C. for various purposes, be it state affairs, leisure, or any other ex-presidential reasons. The unassuming yet elegant four-story house is painted in white and boasts sandstone steps, as noted by Time. Originally, it was a rather plain and unadorned collection of rooms, akin to an ordinary extended-stay hotel. President George W. Bush took the initiative to enhance and furnish the residence using private funding, a move aimed at improving the facility that Nixon had established as a gesture of goodwill toward his predecessor, Lyndon Johnson. Interestingly, despite the designation, LBJ never utilized the presidential townhouse, while it was Gerald Ford who became the first former president to stay there over a decade later. To reserve a stay, one of the 5 living ex-presidents must coordinate with a liaison at the White House, conveniently located just a 1-minute walk away from the presidential townhouse. Staying up to date with national security briefings. One of the paramount responsibilities of a president of the United States is to stay informed about potential threats to the nation's security. These security briefings are an ongoing and essential aspect of a president's tenure, often occurring multiple times a day if circumstances demand it. This constant vigilance is necessary because the global landscape is ever evolving and security threats can arise unexpectedly. While you might assume that former presidents, having completed their time in office and transitioned into private citizenship, would no longer be burdened with such responsibilities, this assumption would be incorrect. In reality, they continue to receive national security updates for the rest of their lives. This practice isn't predicated on the expectation that they will actively intervene in security matters. Rather, it serves as a precautionary measure. Former presidents are kept informed just in case they possess valuable insights or advice that could benefit the current administration. Additionally, they may be queried by the media about their opinions on the security situation, and being well informed ensures they can provide informed responses. The significance of this ongoing security access for ex-presidents became a matter of public interest in 2018, when reports emerged suggesting that President Donald Trump had contemplated revoking Barack Obama's access to national security briefings. President Trump was purportedly unaware that former presidents routinely received these briefings. However, he was subsequently informed that this practice was standard and not a cause for concern. It's important to note that President Trump later denied the accuracy of these rumors. Regardless of whether this specific incident occurred, it did shed light on the extent of access that former presidents retained to day-to-day information about the country's security. It also serves as a testament to the enduring responsibility that comes with having served as the President of the United States. Establishing a presidential library. Have you ever taken note of the fact that every individual who serves as President of the United States gets a library named after them once they conclude their term in office? Well, there's a concrete reason behind this practice. It's actually a law. The 1955 Presidential Libraries Act mandates that each president has the responsibility of overseeing the establishment of a library bearing their name, as reported by the Washington Post. While having a library named in your honor might seem like a remarkable achievement or the life goals moment, it's important to understand that presidential libraries serve a unique and vital purpose. These institutions house a comprehensive collection of every document, piece of writing, and artifact associated with a president's time in office. This includes not just the triumphant moments, but also the less favorable aspects of their presidency. For example, Bill Clinton's library in Little Rock, Arkansas, prominently showcases information related to his impeachment scandal, ensuring that the complete historical record is preserved. One intriguing aspect of presidential libraries is their commitment to transparency. They are required to include every word a president has written during their time in office, with the exception of classified materials, of course. This commitment to openness was reinforced in response to a significant historical event. Specifically, it emerged after former President Richard Nixon attempted to exclude materials related to the Watergate scandal from his library. This attempt led to the rule that all materials generated during a president's term must be accessible to the public for historical purposes. It's worth noting that while presidential libraries must contain all materials, individual presidents do have some influence over how specific subjects are presented. For instance, in the case of George W. Bush's library in Dallas, Texas, his decision to invade Iraq is acknowledged and addressed. However, rather than avoiding this deeply contentious topic, the materials on display provide a perspective that defends his choice, acknowledging the ongoing debate surrounding it. Their phone calls and technology usage must be under constant monitoring. In today's digital age, there's a prevalent assumption that our actions and communications are constantly under scrutiny by either the government or major tech companies. This perception has gained traction over the past 2 decades, fueled by revelations of government surveillance of U.S. citizens without proper warrants. In response to these concerns, the intelligence community has made efforts to improve its transparency and accountability. They've implemented measures to require warrants in many situations, striving to regain public trust. However, there are exceptions to these rules, especially when it comes to the Secret Service and their responsibilities for safeguarding the security of both current and former presidents. For instance, as reported by The Hill, the Secret Service has received exceptions to warrant laws in cases involving stingray devices, which are capable of tracking the locations of cell phones. The Department of Homeland Security has argued that it's impractical to mandate warrants for monitoring the movements of the president and other prominent figures, given the unique security challenges they face. It's essential to clarify that while these devices can track the location of cell phones, they do not intercept the content of communications. Nevertheless, this is just one among various surveillance techniques that law enforcement agencies can employ. The Secret Service, in particular, wields extensive authority when it comes to ensuring the safety of former presidents. This encompasses monitoring for potential threats via phone calls, social media posts, or any other means that might compromise their security. Routine monitoring of a president's or former president's communications is indeed an intrusive measure, but it's considered a necessary aspect of the Secret Service's duty to protect those they have sworn to safeguard. Former presidents are required to have their mail inspected. Former presidents don't enjoy the luxury of much privacy, and even their mail isn't exempt from scrutiny. That's right. Secret Service agents have the task of inspecting an ex-president's regular postal mail and packages before they can reach their intended recipient. While this may seem like a rather thorough measure, it has proven crucial in identifying and preventing potentially dangerous deliveries as recently as 2018. According to Bloomberg Law, the Secret Service successfully detected explosives en route to former presidents Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, as well as other high-profile individuals. However, it's important to note that this mail inspection process doesn't involve a random agent casually perusing an ex-president's mail on the way back from the mailbox. Instead, it's a meticulous, off-site screening conducted by highly trained security personnel with expertise in handling explosives, hazardous chemicals, and related threats. Every piece of mail is subjected to a thorough examination to ensure the safety of the former president. Interestingly, it's not just the Secret Service that keeps a watchful eye on ex-presidential mail. The United States Postal Service also plays a role in monitoring suspicious packages sent through the mail system, regardless of their destination. This surveillance is part of a program known as Dangerous Mail Investigations, which might sound like the premise of a captivating true crime documentary series or a high-stakes procedural drama where dedicated postal workers race against the clock to solve the mystery of a seemingly innocent package containing unexpected dangers. They can never go anywhere alone. We all need our moments of solitude from time to time. Whether it's taking a peaceful walk, finding a quiet room, or simply seeking a break from the hustle and bustle of life, these moments of personal space can be rejuvenating. However, if you aspire to become the President of the United States, you might want to reconsider, as solitude becomes a rare luxury in that role, and it continues even after leaving office. The Secret Service protection is a 24/7 commitment, and as former Secret Service agent Jonathan Wackrow pointed out to NBC News, it can be described as the most intrusive thing that anyone could ever experience. Essentially, being surrounded by people you barely know becomes a constant in the life of a president, and this dynamic persists for ex-presidents as well. Since Secret Service agents can be rotated or reassigned, former presidents often find themselves in the company of strangers throughout their lives. These agents remain unwavering in their commitment, regardless of the circumstances, and are by their protectees' side at all times. While it's not explicitly mentioned whether this includes bathroom breaks, it seems highly probable. Even during holidays, former presidents can't escape the watchful eye of their Secret Service detail. Just imagine not being able to enjoy a Thanksgiving dinner without a group of individuals in black suits standing nearby. In fact, this scenario became a reality for Donald Trump when he was president-elect. As he and his family sat down for a holiday meal at Mar-a-Lago, they were joined by over 150 Secret Service agents, as all the family members in attendance had their own Secret Service details. Planning ahead. Being considered one of the most influential figures on the planet might suggest that you have the freedom to do just about anything, except maybe engage in some unlawful activities like robbing a bank. However, the reality isn't quite that simple. The constant presence of a 24/7, 365-day-a-year Secret Service detail can severely curtail your ability to be spontaneous. The Secret Service requires significant advance notice to prepare for any public outings, adhering to a standard protocol that involves establishing multiple security perimeters around their protectee, as outlined by former Secret Service agent Jonathan Wackrow. This means that any destination you wish to visit typically needs to be scouted out well in advance, sometimes days or even months beforehand, to ensure that the Secret Service can effectively meet their security requirements. If a location fails to meet these stringent standards, there's a significant likelihood that the Secret Service may deem it infeasible. As Wackrow emphasized to NBC News, in cases where the protectee disagrees with the security assessment, the Secret Service doesn't simply acquiesce but actively pushes back. While compromises may occasionally be reached, the paramount concern is always safety and security, even though security teams are highly trained to adapt to rapidly changing situations and make on-the-fly decisions. Meticulous planning is crucial to minimize variables and potential threats. Staying one step ahead of potential dangers remains a fundamental aspect of the Secret Service detail's mission. Even everyday activities become significant endeavors. For an average person, the process of heading to a place like Starbucks for a grande cinnamon dolce latte or any other daily routine is usually quite straightforward. They simply make their way there, grab their coffee, and carry on with their day without much hassle. However, for a former president with an extensive Secret Service detail, even the most mundane tasks can become monumental undertakings. Imagine something as routine as taking a daily walk or going out for dinner. But now envision doing it with a contingent of strangers disrupting the environment around you, and this continues indefinitely. Take, for instance, the Starbucks run made by President Barack Obama while he was still in office. This seemingly simple excursion resulted in the Secret Service cordoning off a substantial portion of the street, redirecting pedestrians away from the president's path. As captured by the Associated Press, the scene featured dozens of agents and at least one Secret Service vehicle. President Obama even requested that the Secret Service give him a little space, offering a glimpse into the frustrations that can arise from constant security measures. Speaking of President Obama, he was renowned for his love of playing pickup basketball games, an activity he enjoyed both in his private life and during his time as a senator. However, once he assumed the presidency, the Secret Service insisted on receiving 4 hours' notice before such a game could take place. President Obama, understandably, wasn't particularly thrilled with this requirement, highlighting how stringent security protocols can impact even personal pastimes. They are obligated to adhere to a budget for diplomatic engagements. Newsweek reports that each former president in good standing receives a substantial expense budget, which encompasses their travel expenses. As stated by an official who spoke to Politico, ex-presidents frequently engage in diplomatic and humanitarian activities abroad, effectively serving as diplomatic emissaries, representing the United States. To support these endeavors, the government reimburses their extensive travel costs, along with covering other expenses related to their professional lives. These expenditures are subject to review, but are almost always approved by the General Services Administration. Perhaps the most significant expense covered by the government for former presidents is office space. This office space allows them to manage their various business and public affairs. According to the National Taxpayers Union Foundation, the government starts covering these expenses 6 months after a president leaves the Oval Office. This coverage includes the setup, furnishing, and staffing of a new office anywhere within the United States that the former president chooses. In 2020, Reuters reported that former presidents Barack Obama, George W. Bush, and Bill Clinton each incurred office rent charges of $500,000, highlighting the substantial costs associated with maintaining these post-presidential offices. They are prohibited from disclosing state secrets. The role of the President of the United States encompasses a vast array of responsibilities, including overseeing the government, serving as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and being one of the most powerful individuals globally. As a result, those who reside and work within the White House are granted access to a wealth of sensitive, classified, and top-secret information. According to the Washington Post, this knowledge spans from details of nuclear weapon launch procedures to the identities of deeply embedded spies within adversarial governments. The significance of safeguarding this classified information cannot be overstated. It is not only dangerous but potentially catastrophic if an outgoing president were to share or sell state secrets to the media or adversaries of the United States. Importantly, such actions are not just morally problematic, they are illegal. In fact, the consequences of such breaches may be irreversible by the time authorities catch up with a former president accused of engaging in activities tantamount to high treason. National Security Attorney Bradley Moss, as cited by the Washington Post, underscores the gravity of the situation. He explains that freely divulging classified information is considered a felony and a clear federal crime. Moreover, if someone were to sell classified information for profit, the violation becomes even more severe, implicating additional criminal provisions. In essence, there is no ambiguity here. Such actions are unlawful and subject to serious legal consequences. If they served 2 terms, they are ineligible to become president again. Following the in-office passing of President Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1945, the Republican-controlled Congress initiated efforts to pass what ultimately became the 22nd Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, as reported by the Constitution Center. This amendment, as outlined in its text, introduced term limits for the presidency. It states, "No person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice, and no person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years, of a term to which some other person was elected. President shall be elected to the office of the president more than once." Essentially, this means that an individual who has been elected and re-elected can serve a maximum of 8 years, while someone who assumed the presidency due to a vacancy and served in that role for more than 2 years can only be elected for 1 additional full term in their own right. Among the former presidents who are still living, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama have each served 2 full terms, rendering them ineligible to run for the presidency again. On the other hand, Jimmy Carter and Donald Trump, who were 1-term presidents, retain the option to run for and serve another term should they choose to do so. Furthermore, it's important to note that 2-term presidents are also barred from becoming vice presidents, as specified in the 12th Amendment. This amendment explicitly states that no person constitutionally ineligible to the office of president shall be eligible to that of vice president of the United States. Having a state funeral. Upon their inauguration, one of the initial tasks undertaken by a new president, as reported by Ella, is the planning of their eventual funeral. According to the Congressional Research Service, federal law mandates that American flags be flown at half-mast for a full 30 days following the death of a president. During this mourning period, The funeral arrangements requested by the president, often involving a military procession or flyover, are carried out. These arrangements fall under the jurisdiction of the commanding general of the Military District of Washington in the U.S. Army. The essential procedures, as outlined in the officially binding pamphlet titled State, Official, and Special Military Funerals, include the provision that the president's body may lie in repose for 1 day before being transferred to the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol for public viewing and paying of respects. The coordination of these proceedings involves 2 cabinet-level offices, namely the Department of Defense and the Department of State, in collaboration with the commanding general. Following the funeral service, the president is laid to rest, and as the commander-in-chief of the U.S. military, they have the option, though not the obligation, to receive a ceremony and burial plot at Arlington National Cemetery. Interestingly, only 2 presidents, William Howard Taft and John F. Kennedy, have chosen Arlington as their final resting place. The rest of the presidents have opted for burial in their hometowns or other locations of personal significance. The honors traditionally conferred during an Arlington ceremony are instead bestowed at the departure point from which the president's body embarks on its journey to its ultimate resting place, be it a train station or airport. And that's the wrap-up of today's video. Do you feel any of these rules are outdated? And do you think it would be worth giving up your privacy for the rest of your life to be president? Comment down below to share your thoughts. As always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel to support us. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.